Dr. Robert Langat, who is a scientist, and just to help us understand. Dr. Are you able to get me? Are you getting me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, so let's just get started on this one. Every time, and I think we've had this discussion before with you, when you talk about every time there's a new variant, it's more deadly than the last one. So what makes the Omicron variant deadly than what you've seen, the Delta variant and all that?
Thanks, Brian, for having me. So in terms of the variants, the viruses always mutate just for their survival. So in this case, the Omicron variant, which is B11529, has had a lot of mutations. So initially, from the Wuhan original virus, we have had several variants of concern. Always, the nature of the viruses change, mutates quite often, but not in all the cases they become, infectious or transmissible. So for the ones that have been designated variants of concern, in the Delta and the Beta, they have changed in terms of their genetic makeup. So for this case, Beta and Delta, they have mutated in what's called 9 mutations. So they have changed in the structure of the spike protein. This is the protein that recognizes the cells and infect individuals. What we are seeing with the Omicron is they have a lot of mutations, up to 32 mutations in the spike protein. That is a protein that recognizes the cell, as well as 10 mutations in the what we call the receptor binding domain. So within that big protein of the spike protein, there are also mutations within the receptor binding. So this is the worry that this now variant has become a concern to the world.
Now, Dr. Ali, let me pose this question. This question to you. When we are talking about the Omicron variant, and we've been calling for the world to vaccinate quite a lot of its population, and many countries have done that so far, as we can just look at the statistics, and Kenya is still trying to get to that target that it has set for vaccination. Why then are we so worried about the variant, if at all quite a good population of people, a good number of people has been vaccinated against the COVID-19?
We are worried in the sense that only 52% of the world population have had, at least one vaccination. When we look at the African population, and that is where our worry is because around 7% of the African population have met the target in terms of the vaccines. And the worry is this variant, the Omicron, seems to, highly transmissible. At the same time, we are looking at high rate of reinfection. This means the individuals who have received both vaccines, as well as even the third booster in the West, have had, this Omicron variant. So what it means is, if this virus can be able to infect the people who are fully vaccinated, what about those who have not been vaccinated, especially in the African population? And that is our very big worry for this variant. We don't know at the moment its severity in terms of the disease, but what we know is the findings or studies are showing that this particular variant is highly transmissible. And for individuals that have not received the vaccine, it might be dangerous to have this variant around.
All right, Dr. Ali, when we talk about having the vaccine, because it says that when you are vaccinated, you are actually boosting your immunity, then if at all it gets to infect somebody who is vaccinated, how deadly is it for the person who is vaccinated? Actually, let's just focus on that.
At the moment, we don't know its severity. So what it means is the vaccine is supposed to, offer protection. But in some cases that it might not completely stop an individual from getting the infection. What it means is some individuals can get infection depending again on how the body is primed by the vaccines to be able to respond to this COVID-19. So what it means is if the individuals who are vaccinated still can be able to be infected with this variant, it means that the vaccines that we have might not be able to recognize this variant. As I mentioned, there's a lot of mutation in the spike protein. This is the protein that the virus used to recognize the cells and infect individuals. So for this case, if the viruses or the vaccines that we have at the moment cannot stop individuals from this virus, because the virus itself evades the immune system, because the vaccines that have been designed is looking at that particular spike protein. If the structure has changed, then it becomes quite difficult, or some of these vaccines that are already rolled out might not be efficient or offer the protection.
Okay. Now, I think this one now, it becomes from a point of curiosity. Will we get to a point where we don't have to worry about COVID-19? If at all, every time we try to have a solution, then there's all this mutation, and it seems to be deadlier. It's like a cycle. We are not getting out of it. Are we looking at a point where probably you're going to be seeing light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes, in the sense that we might reach a point that the virus might not be completely out of us. What we might experience is having like the normal flu, where we are able to manage just to live with it. Because what it means is for the last year or so, the super variant, the Delta, that has been quite predominant, came about. And we are now 12 months down the line, we have this Omicron, which we don't know at the moment fully whether this is quite severe in terms of disease progression as Delta, because what we know is this particular virus variant was detected, a week ago. So we really don't know the severity of this. So what it means is, as the numbers of people who are getting vaccinated goes up, we might reach a point whereby the virus is rendered inefficient in terms of new infection, but completely eradicating might be a challenge for us. We might, in the long run, try to live with it.
Okay, Dr. Let me get to, because I'm running out of time, and just talk about the vaccines currently in the country. We have now, I'll say probably quite a number of vaccines from donations, and people do not seem to be curious to want to take the vaccines, and that's why the government is putting in measures to ensure that people go by saying that if you're not going to be vaccinated and you don't have proof of vaccination, you'll not be getting government services. Why are we reluctant to take the vaccine if at all the threat to COVID-19 is still here in the country?
I must applaud the government in terms of the public awareness. I think there's a lot of myths out there. Individuals, I can say almost everyone have heard there is a COVID and they know there are vaccines. Initially, we had challenge in terms of the vaccines that were available to us. As you know, the African population have received the least number of doses for vaccines. But nonetheless, we have received quite a number. And as per a day ago, we have received almost 12 million doses in Kenya, and around 6.9 individuals have been given vaccination. Around 4.2 of that received the first dose, and around 50%, slightly above that, have received the second dose. So there is, the government needs to do a lot of public awareness to just inform people that the vaccines are quite available, and they encourage individuals to get the vaccines. I know there is a lot of hesitancy, but at the end of the day, the government needs to put more emphasis on why we should get these vaccines.
All right. Then let's look at, are we being forced to take the vaccines? If actually we are being forced, then probably there's somewhere that communication did not work properly. So instead of having people to be forced to take the vaccines and being threatened here and there, is there a way in which the government and the people can come together and just have conversations around vaccination so that people do not have to be threatened to take the vaccine and just do it willingly?
Yeah, I think the government have used quite a long in terms of public awareness, informing the people that they need to get the vaccines. And what we have seen also, we have seen a lot of decentralization. So most of the companies, they have been able to talk directly to the Ministry of Health to get the vaccines so that they take the vaccine to the individuals. We have also seen in far-flung areas, in the villages, whereby initially it was quite difficult to get the vaccines. So at the end of the day, I think the government have to come up with several strategies just to increase, the uptake of the vaccine. It might not be necessarily that the government are forcing individuals to, take the vaccine, because at the end of the day, this is a choice that individuals need to volunteer and get the vaccine. But I tend to believe that at the end of the day, it's the government trying to use different tactics to make individuals or population to be able to get the vaccines.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Robert Langat, for making time for us here on the Week in Focus.